When it comes to investing your money, everyone has an opinion. Some people say max out your 401k as soon as you have extra money. Others say pay off all of your debt before you invest a single dollar. And then there's the crowd telling you that you need to trade stocks. So what's actually right? Because building wealth is not about just what you invest in, it's also about the order that you invest in things. And getting it wrong can cost you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over the span of your lifetime before you even realize what happened. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps that I follow now after making a lot of these mistakes myself and eventually figuring out the smarter way to build wealth. Now, before we get into the order, I have to explain why this order is so important, because most people don't understand the damage that was caused on their wealth until many years down the road. So think about it like building a house. You wouldn't start out by picking the furniture and the fixtures first if you knew that there was a crack in the foundation and the roof needed to be replaced. Hopefully you fix the foundation first and get that roof replaced before you start looking at leather couches. But this is how a lot of people approach their finance, which is backwards. They get excited about picking stocks or ETFs and completely forget about the high interest rate debt that they have that's ruining any gains that they make in the stock market anyway. The excitement of investing feels fun, but the math is working against you the entire time, because a credit card that has 22% interest rate is going a lot faster than the stock market gains that you're going to get from year to year, because there is no investment strategy that's consistently going to help you make up that 22% loss that you're getting from that high interest rate debt. And every month you skip your employer's matching contribution is another month that you're leaving money on the table. And every month that you invest more into your taxable account versus your tax advantage accounts is another month that you're giving money away in taxes unnecessarily. So here's the sequence, starting with step one, which is your emergency fund. Before you invest a single dollar, you need an emergency fund. I know you heard this before, but it's because it's that important. And the reason is that an emergency fund is not just for surprise expenses. It also helps you mentally because you know that you have a safety net in case something comes up down the line that's not going to completely ruin your finances. Now, I learned this the hard way. There was one point where I needed $1,200 in repairs for my car, and I only had about $500 saved. And I had to scramble to come up with the rest of this money for this car repair. Once I was finally able to scramble the money, it took me almost 2 months just to build back my savings, which was already having me in a delicate position anyway. So without an emergency fund, things like this send you backwards. So here's what I recommend. Save $1,000 as quickly as you can, because this will cover most emergencies. Once you have that $1,000, then you want to focus on trying to save up 1 month of essential expenses in that savings account. Once you hit that first month, then you want to aim to get between 3 to 6 months of those essential expenses. Now you want to break this into stages so it doesn't feel overwhelming, and don't feel like you have to have 3 to 6 months saved up in 2 months, because the math is not going to work for you. This is going to take time, but you want to make sure that you're focusing on this as you get to these other steps in the video. The second step, once your emergency fund is in place, the next step is you want to focus on your high interest rate debt. I mean anything that's charging you about 8% or more annually. Credit cards here are the biggest culprit because a lot of these credit cards have over 20% interest rates. So carrying a lot of credit card debt and trying to invest at the same time doesn't make sense, because you may get 10% in the market, but then you're paying 22% on your credit card. So you're losing either way. Now, when it came to debt, my situation was a little bit different. I had about $42,000 in school loans and a $12,000 car loan. Now, the approach that I used to get rid of my debt was the avalanche method. So I focused on paying off the car loan first because it had the highest interest rate compared to my student loans. And once I paid off the car, I started focusing on the student loans that had the highest interest rate first. I paid that down in order from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. Now, in my opinion, this is the best way to take care of your debt, because you're going to be paying less interest over time. Now, there's another approach called the debt snowball method. This is where you sort your debt by balances and not the interest rate, and you focus on taking care of the smallest balance first, and you work your way down the line until you get done with the largest balance. Now, mentally, this approach can work for a lot of people because you'll get some quick wins by being able to knock out the smaller debts and you start to gain momentum. But if you can handle the avalanche method, it will save you some more money over time. So list all your debts by interest rates first, pay the minimums on everything, and then throw every extra dollar that you have at the highest interest rate debt that's at the top of your list, and you keep working your way through that list until it's gone. Number 3. Now here's the one exception when it comes to investing before you start getting rid of your high interest rate debt and having an emergency fund. If your employer has an employee match for your 401k, you should focus on investing enough to be able to get the match from your employer, even before you pay off your high interest rate debt. Your job is giving you free money for investing in yourself. You don't have to wait to pay off your debt to be able to take advantage of that. Now, most employers will give you about a 3 to 6% match based off of your salary. So if you make $60,000 a year and your employer matches 4% of that salary, that's potentially $2,400 in free money every year just for you contributing your own $2,400. So you've doubled your money before you even give your investments a chance to grow in the stock market. So the key is to contribute enough to get the match, and then the extra money you want to put it back towards your high interest rate debt. Now, once your debt is gone, you can increase your contributions beyond the match, or you can invest that money in other accounts that I'll talk about later in the video. The one thing that you have to understand is that a lot of companies have a vesting schedule, and that's going to determine how long long you have to work at the company for you to keep that free money that they gave you. Some companies have a vesting schedule where that money is yours as soon as they give it to you. Others will have a vesting schedule where you may have to work for that company for at least a year to keep that money. So it's just something to keep note of. If an employer tells you that they have a match, you want to know what the vesting schedule is. But even with vesting requirements, it's still worth the effort to get the full employer match. Number 4, now once your emergency fund is built, you're tackling your high interest rate debt, and you're getting your full employer match, we want to start focusing on improving your tax situation. And this is where a lot of people make a mistake because they'll jump right into a taxable brokerage account before they start looking at these other accounts that's going to help them more in the future. So you want to max out your IRA. Now your IRA is typically going to give you better control over your investment options and usually comes with lower fees. I opened up my IRA back in 2020 during the pandemic, and I wish I had done it a lot sooner. But the timing worked out because I was just getting done with paying off my debt and I had extra money to start investing. Now the Roth IRA specifically made sense for my situation because I was thinking about taxes later on compared to taxes right now. So with the Roth, the money that you contribute to that plan has already been taxed. So that account can grow, it can get gains, and you can withdraw that money in retirement without paying taxes on it again. Now with my Roth IRA, I invested in FXAIX. This is Fidelity's S&P 500 index fund, and it has been great. It has historically gained 10% or more annually, and I didn't have to worry about picking stocks. I didn't have to worry about watching the market every 30 minutes. I didn't have to worry about managing my investment. All I needed to do was just contribute consistently to this fund that's going to track 500 of America's largest and most successful companies, and just let it work in the background while I live my day-to-day life. So for 2026, you can contribute up to $7,500 for an IRA or $8,600 if you're 50 or older. So max out this account first before you invest anywhere else because the tax benefits are going to compound year over year as long as you're consistent. Number 5, if you have access to a health savings account through your job, this is where things get pretty interesting because the HSA is the most underused investment in this country, in my opinion. And I know that because I did not take advantage of it for many years and I wish I did. Most people think that HSAs are just accounts to keep money for medical expenses, but I use mine a little bit differently. I treat it as another investment account that grows over time. Now here's why HSAs are so good. You get 3 separate tax benefits, and this is the only account that does this. You get a tax deduction on the contributions to the account, your money grows tax-free while it's invested into the account, and withdrawals for medical expenses are also tax-free as you take the money out. It's the only account that gives you tax benefits while the money goes in, while it grows, and while you take money out. So the strategy to do this is if you have the cash, if you have the money to be able to take care of medical expenses without using your HSA, let the HSA money stay invested into the market and save your medical receipts because there's no time limit for you to reimburse yourself from this account. You could pay for a doctor visit today and reimburse yourself from that HSA account years down the line after you've grown it a substantial amount and not have to pay any taxes on it. So for 2026, you can contribute $4,400 as an individual or $8,750 for family coverage. But the catch is that you have to be on a high deductible plan to have access to this account. So if it makes sense to you and you have access to this type of account, take advantage of it because you're going to thank yourself later in the future. Number 6, now finally, after you've been through all your tax advantage accounts, after you've built your savings, after you've taken care of your high interest rate debt, here's where the taxable brokerage accounts come into play. I have a taxable brokerage account and I use it in a very specific way. This is almost like the fallover account. Once all the tax advantage accounts are taken care of, any extra money that I have that I want to invest goes into the taxable brokerage. Now there are no tax benefits to a brokerage account. You're going to get taxed on the money that you're contributing to the account, and you're going to get taxed on your gains when you take money out of the account. But the biggest benefit to the taxable brokerage is flexibility. Anytime you have a tax advantage account, there's going to be some kind of limitation. You might have to get to a certain age to where you can use the money. You may only be able to contribute up to a certain amount, but with the brokerage, you can do whatever you want as long as you have the money to pay the taxes on those gains. For example, when my wife and I needed to buy a new car, we used money from our brokerage account to be able to pay for that car. This was money that we were contributing for 2 or 3 years, and it was building up in time for us to plan for getting a new car. So if you need money for a house down payment within the next 5 years, a brokerage account might be a good idea. Or some type of grand vacation, using a brokerage account to build that money up over time might be a good idea. Just know and expect that you're going to have to pay taxes on that money that grows, and it can be a pretty hefty amount depending on how much you have in that account. And that's why the brokerage account is the last one on the list to invest in and not the first. So if you follow this sequence, you're going to build wealth in the right order and all your bases are going to be taken care of. But if you want to know exactly how I built a side income to invest into all these different accounts without just relying on my paycheck, check out this next video here.